Honestly, I think the greatest thing that you can give a child is pain. How are you going to deal out disciplinary actions to your children?
Hello? Listen, man. Look, here's the thing that I'm going to teach my child. I've already explained this to Alex. Okay? And I was actually having this conversation with my mom. Okay?
Mm.
One thing that the old parents, the old heads made a mistake, in my opinion, raising their kids, dude, is that they're trying to raise them through fear. And yes, you can be very successful through fear. But
Yes, you
two things
can.
happen if you raise your child through fear. One, it all goes to shit when they stop fearing you. Two, they never stop fearing you, and then you create a crippling fear of authority to the point where they can't fucking do anything without being directed.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to discipline my child through fear. I want to discipline my child through respect, through mutual respect. I'm not going to talk down on them. I mean, obviously, we talked about joking, messing with them. Sure. Vice versa. I expect them to joke with me. I'm not, but in a serious situation, I'm not going to sit there and belittle them, call them dumb, purposely try to hurt their feelings, hit them unwarranted. Or one thing that happens to so many kids, happened to me, happened to Alex, probably happened to you. Like, Jason, you ever sat there and tell your mom or dad or a parent, and hey, I didn't do that, and it hits you anyway?
My dad used to. Alright, son, get over here.
So
I'm kidding, by
literally,
the way. I'm
like,
kidding about that, by the way.
no,
He doesn't.
literally,
He's
bro,
not a
like,
drinker.
not. Are you sure? So
Yeah.
literally,
He hates it.
like growing up, often, like more, like a lot of times, dude, I would, and it wasn't. My mom just wouldn't believe me. She believed everyone but me.
Facts.
And it wasn't
Hear
until
that?
I got older that, my mom ended up apologizing to me because when we got older, the cousins get older, the siblings get older, the stories are coming out. And all these stories about how many times I was telling the truth and got in trouble anyway start to come to fruition. And I was like, you see? And all this time, all you had to do was believe me. Or literally, because sometimes, like, I get it if it's like, okay, something broke and there's no way to prove it, there's no investigation. I understand. But you know what I'm talking about. Like, there's certain things that it's like, for example, uh, got mad at her once because she accused of stealing her belt. I wore your belt. I asked you if I could, and then when I was done with it, I put it back where it was. Ended up getting in trouble. She got grounded. Whatever. 2 weeks later, finds her belt in huh? Yeah. Oh, okay. So it was the same day. Same day she got her ass beat.
See, you
Her
said
mom
you said like detention. She goes, she whooped my ass. She fucked me up from pillar to post. So what actually happened?
and so afterwards, uh, finds the belt. And what was in her hamper? It was in her hamper under her dress. So she had it the whole time. She just thought stole it because she couldn't find it, and then paid the price. And like, okay, that's you look back and that's like ha 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 ha. Sure, but for a kid growing up, that's traumatizing. Like, that's traumatizing. Like, you're sitting there and it's like the people you're relying on, like, even they don't believe you. And if that happens more than once, you create a very big, like, deficiency in your child. Like, why would they ever bother telling the truth if even when they do, no one believes them? Especially
Exactly.
the people, the one person that should, right? So I don't want to do that with my children. So I want to create a an aura, a boundary, a area of respect that they feel heard. And we might not agree on everything. They might still get in trouble, and I might still think they're lying, but I want them to feel heard. Feel
Yes.
heard, feel like they can trust me, that if I do discipline them and it really wasn't their fault, they can trust me to in the future be like, oh, you know what, and like take accountability. Be like, hey, you know what, man, I really shouldn't have punished you because that wasn't your fault, so I'm gonna make it up to you. Instead, here you go. Next time you get in trouble, maybe I won't punish you, or here's some money for a new video game. That's my bad. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Be be as accountable with your kids as you want your kids to be accountable for their actions.
That's a great way to put it. I think that's the
Yes,
best way to
sir.
put it. Yeah. Um.
So that's what I want to do with my kids. So that's why discipline is it's always gonna be tricky, And I'm not saying I'm going to be perfect, but I'm going to keep my eyes open, my ears open. I'm going to try to listen. I'm going to do the best that I can do for them. And obviously, depending on personality, so every personality, every child needs different things. They need different approaches and different learning styles, different coping mechanisms, different disciplinary styles. And then you have to also deal with the right, how it reflects on each other, right? Because like maybe you do have that one kid who does need to like get a few spankings, get his ass beat a little bit, right? But then there's another kid who's like super sensitive, and all they need is a stern talking to, maybe a yelling. You have to discipline them different. Not only that, they need it differently, but they also need to understand as to why the other person's being treated different, so it doesn't feel like favoritism. Because that one kid who's getting beat is gonna create resentment against his own siblings and you, because they don't have the understanding that, hey, the only reason this is happening is because you do not listen like they do. So if you do, look at the beneficial treatment. You want to be treated with a little less harshness, act like your sibling in this regard. And once they understand that, even if they're mad about the harsher punishment, in the future, they will understand why. And that's when you get the adults who look back and they're like, you know what? I would act a little spoiled. You know what? Yeah, I'm gonna eat that. That one's on me. That's where you get that own accountability from, which I feel like, again, is the whole thing that ties the subjects together.
You know what scenario needs a new perspective in terms of storytelling? When you find out that your kid is bullying somebody, and it always comes down to the disciplining, and of course, why is the child doing it? But 9 times out of 10, the parent is never looking at themselves. And I'm talking.
I think that's the first thing I would reflect, dude. That'd be the first thing I.
Yes.
As a parent, that's the first thing I would worry about.
100%. But think about most situations. If anybody got that call home for some reason, it's like when they're being told that, they have earmuffs on, and it doesn't actually get through to them. You know? So how do you actually fix that scenario? Like you, of course, you would introspect. You would think about, what did I do wrong? What am I doing? What is Alex doing? Well, I see how she plays with Luna. All right, it's Alex's fault. But
I think it's also there should be a giant reflection as to who, and like you said, why, but also as to who they are bullying. I think matters ginormously.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. There was a kid, this is elementary school, and there was a kid that by middle school had become a pretty big bully. Now, you're thinking, how did this happen? What was the turning point? Where did this happen? Well, in the second grade, this is now 3 to 4 years prior, I was in a grade, I was below. So I saw this as a first grader, I was below. I only had very mild interactions with the kid. He was older, bigger, and I just kind of was always just kind of keeping to myself. I watched this kid in the second grade. I would have to say maybe jump by like maybe 5 or 6 people. Mm-hmm. Fast forward 4 years later, in 6th grade, he's the biggest bully. Isn't that something? And and analyzing that is so important, because that is like, I think it's important because I'm not saying that him bullying isn't wrong, but what happened to him is wrong as well. And that's something that you need to manage, because he has to process what had happened to him in order to not do that to somebody else. That is a loss of process that a parental guidance, or even a teacher or like a guidance counselor was not paying attention to, that they should have been paying attention to, So yeah, I think that happens a lot. I think the reason why the bullying started, or how, quote unquote, how the bully began, the origin of the bully, I think it's very important to evaluate when the bully emerges. Not to give him a pass, but to understand why. And once you understand why, it's much easier to fix the problem, Jason, that you understand all the variables in, rather than throwing a puzzle on the table and you don't even know if you have all the puzzle pieces, right? So you want to figure out all the ins and outs before you go to try to fix the problem. Once you have that, then you can see the pieces that are clear. Okay, this is what happened. So he feels like he needs to hurt these people because somebody had hurt him in this way. He felt humiliated, so he wants to humiliate everyone because he wants to feel superior. to make up for that inferior moment in his life that really left a scar on, or the background of the family, whatever the case may be,
I think this is all a big game of playground. And I think you run into the same problem over and over again, and it just gets a tad bit more complicated, kind of like math, which is, what is 2 plus 2? Or you get what I mean? Fish, 4, whatever it might be. It would just say 4. 2 plus 2 equals 4. How do you even teach a kid that? Because in a sense, if you just have 2 plus 2, at first it's a language you don't really understand. But then if you know what numbers are, okay, 1, 2, and you look at your fingers as the starting point. When you really think about where you measure things or how you measure things, what are you comparing to? Because it's all just a big compare and contrast game. It's why, like, what is a kilogram? Can you show me the first kilogram? What was the progenitor of what is always compared to it? If this is 1 kilogram, everything that you say is 1 kilogram has to equal this at all times. What is the reference point? How do you make the magic that goes from 2 plus 2 and then in that equals part make 4? 4 being the resolution. So for a lot of these people, they get so stuck, and people go to therapy and they try to talk to their friends and their family because they have no real way of doing the equalizing part of mathematics. Sometimes it's not even about the addition, the subtraction, figuring out the root. Some people actually can't do the equals part. Notice how people give no answer to an incorrect answer when it comes to math. I don't even think it's so much PEMDAS, remembering which one comes first. I think it's really, how do you teach people how to go from 0 to 1 in all of these smaller situations? So,
I have a counter, but not full counter, more like a supplementary comment.
Okay, put your G's on me.
So basically, I think, to your point, the hardest part about any of that is to, like you said, showing the equal to a person that has, like you said, not learned, because they're kids, right? So not learning the language, right? But someone who never even would have seen the equation.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is, like, if, for example, it's hard as a teacher, as a guidance counselor, as a friend, as a helper, whatever. It is hard to teach a kid accountable whose parents have never been accountable.
Yeah.
It won't, like, you can show them, but it's not going to make sense because they didn't grow up seeing accountability. It's going to be like a foreign subject to them.
Mm-hmm.
So to your point, some kids can't even get to the equals part because they've never even seen the equation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's part of it as well. And what's the answer to that? I think is more complicated than anything else. It's hard to find an answer to that because at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. Here's the truth about reality with parenting, right? Every parent's entitled to parent their child however they feel they feel or see fit, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the idea. But the problem is, in practice, a lot of parents don't do that. And furthermore, even then, there are parents who are genuinely, Jason, I'm sure you've come across it, genuinely think they're doing the right thing and doing way more damage than even the parent who doesn't care, right? So those are the complexities of parenting. So you can't impose, like, the government can't be there. Like, they can impose, okay, getting an education, providing shelter, food, blah blah blah, child protection services. Sure, but you can't infringe on basic rights. So, like, the government can't set up a fucking camera in your house watching 24/7, which would then not be
They're
able to
trying. It's not for lack of it.
Or police, they can't track or police every single interaction you have with that kid. And even if they did, right? And even if you did, the human nature and a lot of it is the reality of it's prone to making mistakes. So even if they did do it, not everyone's going to be perfect. Some are going to be better than others. Some are going to be better in certain aspects than others. Like, it's hard to make the argument. Hey, Jason, take
Yeah.
yourself.
I'm
Plenty
taking.
of people. Would you rather have a parent who's broke, drug addict, but loves you, would do anything for you, and emotionally is there, or a parent who doesn't talk to you but solves any financial issue you have?
Ugh, that's tough. It really
Exactly.
it really falls into what you're
It,
really
it,
gonna
it
value.
falls head, yeah, it falls in your valley, and it also heavily falls onto the type and personality of the child. The problem is, it's that whole nurture nature argument. Now, is the certain parent creating this and fostering these habits, this personality in the child, or is the child born with it innately that will allow them to be able to withstand a certain parenting style regardless of what it is? So it
Yeah.
just depends. And that's an answer that I don't really think we're even close to getting to.
Hmm.
But it's something that it is something that doesn't necessarily, you don't have to have the answer to that when you're parenting 120%, but you have to be aware of that. So when things happen, you are prepared and being willing to trying a different approach or trying something new or trying to figure out what the best options are for your child. I think that's what it is to me.
Okay. Love that. Love that. It's such a complex problem that, like you said, the government can't tell you how to raise a family, dude, because it doesn't know all of your problems. Your problems
Mm-hmm.
might be stemming from fucking granddad who put you in generational debt because he decided to hijack a plane and whatever, whatever. Now all of y'all gotta pay for it forever. Indentured servitude. Which is a real
Mm-hmm.
thing. A real fucking thing. So, how do you fix a family? I think at the very least, it takes one person to learn accountability completely on their own. I think that's what you get. I think that's what spontaneity is. I think that's what, you know, coincidence is. I think you can try to teach people how to go from 0 to 1, but I think a lot of the time 0 turns into 1 all by itself. And I try to look at myself. The more accountable I try to be, even though I really didn't learn it, when would I say I really learned accountability? I would say I really learned accountability when I lost my house. That's when I lost. Okay, like that's when I started to really take accountability, and it took a big thing like that to make me reflect and go, well, shit. Um, there's no one to look to not only blame, but I can't fall back on anybody right now. I think that's more so what it is. Not so much like I didn't really have anybody that I was willing to blame or wanted to blame. It was more I have nothing to fall back on. So I have to be accountable for myself. Otherwise, 0 turns to 1 turns back into 0. Complete binary is sometimes the way that I think in that regard. So I kind of want to stay at 1, maybe even get to 2, and then 3, and then 4, and kind of build from there. But to be stuck at the base, when you have a fucked up base, it shapes you. It shapes you in many of different ways. So I think a lot of families eventually are gonna get their good blessings. I think some kid is gonna look around and go, as much as I hate you fuckers, I would be so much more upset in my life knowing that I didn't try to fix this, as opposed to letting all these things go bad. And yes, I'm probably really sad that my sister died, and my parents didn't have the love. They got divorced and they didn't have the love. I'm not talking about me, but I'm just like
No,
putting
I
that
get. Look.
scenario. You
I
know?
get it. It's just, I think something too to your point. I agree, but also it's the tale. Again, which is why I think it's important to be open to it. It's like that. It's like that old phrase, right? You can bring a horse to the water, but you can't force it to drink.
So you drown it.
You could, and it's just gonna die.
It'll die one way or another, and it'll be by my hand. It's like when women say, I brought you into this world and I'll fucking take you out, which is honestly primarily a Latina thing.
Yeah, so like I sit there, right? Because like you can learn accountability, but if your family, the people around you, aren't willing to learn it and aren't willing to work with you and learn how to progress, be better, whatever it is that you're helping them, and not always, right? Because sometimes the person trying to help is, narcissistic and they're assholes and they're just as bad. But I'm saying like a person who's genuinely trying to help and they're genuinely trying to progress and help their family. There comes a point, Jason, where the accountability now turns inwards again, and you got to be accountable for your own self and your own life and recognize, I'd love to save these people, but if I do any more of this, I'm done. I can't. You can't help someone if you can't help yourself. So there comes a point where you have to be able to also recognize, I got to let you go.
Is that now? See, that's where my path of thinking goes. Is that within the essence of what being a hero is? Or is being a hero purely just another name for a martyr who's willing to die for the cause and never tend to himself, even if he depletes himself? Also, he could just give back for the sake of doing it.
No, because if you take someone, for example, like someone who depletes himself, like take Spider-Man, right? In the Ultimate Comics, right? He basically fought to exhaustion essentially and died, right?
Yeah.
But those people he were saving were either innocent people who had done nothing wrong or people who wanted to be saved. That's where being a hero works. If Spider-Man is going into he's going into I'll use a crack house. He's going into a crack house, right? There's mafia there, people trying to shoot him, but also the crackheads are also trying to shoot him. He can't save them. Yeah. And he knows that. So he's not going to. And that's the difference. You gotta know. And I'm not talking about, because again, right? You can use the terms of hero and saving and many in a broad term. I'm not saying like saving a relationship or saving like that. No, I'm saying like the actual like inner core of a humanity, right? You can't force someone to want to improve.
Yeah.
Me and Vanessa once had a similar conversation, and basically my last point that I had, it wasn't about this, but it was something similar, and I basically told her, I was like, I appreciate how much she wants to improve the world, but you can't go into a room, point at a guy and be like, hey, you should go to the gym, and he goes, nah, I'm good. I'm happy like this. I'm happy with my life. Oh, well, you could barely move. That's fine. I just like watching movies. I'm happier that way. And you can't do anything but just accept it. There's nothing you can do about it.
See, I think, yeah, go ahead.
Look, like they've done throughout entire history, through wars, through everything. You can sit there and show someone all the stats, all the information, and they can still sit there and be like, I don't care.
I think this is why love is very twisted, and it is both light and dark, because it can be very perverted at times. And I think in a case like this, she's somebody who would actually love to see the entire world happy, because if the entire world is happy, she can no longer feel like a bitch or act like a bitch in any way. You know what I mean?
No, dude, look. Here's the thing, though, dude. Here's the thing. You want the entire world to be happy. The problem is happiness is defined by many different people, many different ways. And
exactly.
The problem is, Jason, and I've said this my entire life, in order for someone to reach true happiness, they will always hurt someone else in one way or another. There is no way to avoid it. For easiest example, loving mother, loving child, perfect family, everything's great, right? That child goes and gets married, they have to move out. They're not going to spend as much time with their mother. The mother doesn't spend as much time with the grandchild. That, even though that is positive, because they're creating their own family unit. You don't think that mother hurts? You're always going to hurt someone in order to reach true happiness. So if you want the whole world to be happy, the idea is nice. It'd be great, but that's never going to happen, because there are people who are literally, their happiness is completely based in only greed. And how do they make that money? To take it away from other people. That action, that power, that overpowering someone else, that's what makes them happy, and in turn makes someone else unhappy. So if you made everyone happy, there's still going to be people that aren't happy. You get what I'm saying? It's a paradox that will never be solved. It's
you want to know?
impossible.
I know. See, here's the issue. I think paradoxes are very silly to begin with, because paradoxes completely erase the line and go back into, like, the issue with what a paradox is all it means is there's no roadmap to get from point A to point B. That's all a paradox is. You're saying these two things cancel out, when it's more like, what can you, like, once you observe, you must accept that as truth. Now, what happens when it's not so much somebody whose ultimate goal is to make sure the whole world is happy, but what if their whole essence is putting the people, everybody, on the path to happiness? At the very least, I'm not going to make you reach your ultimate happiness, but if I could do anything, I could at least start you right where you're supposed to be. And if you want to trail off, that's fine. But I can accept the fact that at least you had a view at some point at the very beginning to where your ultimate happiness could be. And maybe in the process to get to that ultimate happiness, you have to go off-road, because that is what makes you happy. To be different, to be the contrarian, simply for the sake of being one. You can do it out of spite, but also because, dude, there's actually nothing over here. Everybody, like, even though I'm the only one who's gonna walk this set path, I can still go off course even from my own path. What does that look like? You know, when you do something spontaneous, something abrupt.
I think, yeah, but again, that's great in theory.
Mm-hmm.
But there's people that just at the fact that you're telling them makes them unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
Just the fact that you're there, I'm unhappy.
So
that's a problem.
But
that's why I called it a paradox, because regardless of what you do and what your intention is, because the other person has an autonomous decision over their own body and thoughts,
mm-hmm.
It won't matter. It won't matter, because at the end of the day, they're going to do whatever they want to do anyway.
Then I have a question.
Go for it.
Do you think this is why God left? Whatever you want to deem God, if God could be sentient, he's not talking to us right now in any capacity. He, she, we, it. They're not talking right now. Meaning God has left. You are actually free to do whatever. If this life is supposed to make sense, I think you are born into the path that is going to make you the happiest, no matter what. Like, you actually can't get around that. You started where you started. I think as dark as your darkness, the brighter the inner light could be. I think that to every capacity when you just balance things on a scale. So even in a game.
Yeah, but I just feel like statements like that, though, are also then it's tough, right? Because then essentially, like the darkest person can have the brightest light, sure,
Mm-hmm.
but then doesn't that completely diminish all the light that another person is putting in? Like, it's so hard, because it's like
if
Jason,
they're standing next
to
to each other, yeah.
If you were to tell me, Jason,
Mm-hmm.
Javs, you have two options in your life. You can either A, be a happy-go-lucky, super nice person, do everything perfectly, and you'll get a good life. Or B, you can be a degenerate piece of shit, fuck a bunch of people over, probably steal some money, see the light eventually, and end up having an immaculate life.
Mm-hmm.
Who's not going to pick the dark path?
You'd be surprised.
So I don't think
some
the
people
dark
hate
path
work.
I don't think the dark path is really rewarded.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's like that. Oh, no. I think the reason, like, okay, so you said, why did God leave? Why is he not talking to us? Because I think that was the point. The point is for you to do whatever you want.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then afterwards, if you do end up doing the right thing, whatever the case may be, whatever the correct moral, whatever it is, if you do end up doing the right thing, even if you had done some bad in the beginning, you did it without being prompted. You did it without me telling you to.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, then that's real light. real goodness, because you didn't have to do that. You innately chose it. Something in you, even if it was an accident, even if it was to spite something else, you did it just to do it. And I think that is what proves your worthiness.
I think that's the beauty with Itachi, Sasuke, and Madara, where Itachi is the complete he is a fantasy. Itachi is quite literally a fantasy in and of himself, because he went down the dark path, went a little bit further than a dark angel would, and died, especially in his own eyes, not as a martyr, but as a sinner. And even though he came back with the, Edo Tensei is what it's called? Tensei Edo? Whatever. Mm-hmm. He comes back, his whole redeeming arc plays out in death, which I think, at least the way that I see it, is more of a metaphor of what could have been. And he tells Sasuke, you don't have to be me. I'm the king of angst, I know, but you don't want this crown. If you be me, you end up like me. And there's no little brother for you to come back in death to try to, at least acknowledge your faults. So don't make
I
these
think a little
faults.
part of that, and I think a little part of that story was Itachi also being like, now that you know the truth, like about like what happened and why he did the bad thing and all that, right? Mm-hmm. This like angsty, evil imagination proclamation you have of me, like even the Itachi you knew isn't really Itachi. You're not literally chasing a ghost. You're literally chasing an imagination.
That's so.
Do you get what I'm saying?
It's such a mind fuck. I love it. yeah, it's
right,
true.
Right. So I think like it's I think. Here's an interesting story, Jason, right? Because again, mm-hmm. I think this is another piece of the puzzle is perspective, right?
Okay.
So during the Angel War, okay, which is what ended up having Lucifer sent to hell, okay?
Yeah.
Right? Why was Lucifer sent to hell? How did hell begin? Lucifer sent to hell because he was jealous of humans, right? Mm-hmm. And he made the holy war and rebelled against God. Cool. I get that. Now here's an interesting perspective, okay, Jason? Now we're humans, okay? We're here. We did this thing. We're living life. Jason, I now create this AI. And I'm just going to use me as an example so we can pick one singular form, one singular person. I create AI. Okay?
Okay.
AI is getting powerful, getting strong. They're doing whatever they want, hurting each other, hurting the world. And you, Jason, my good friend, my good pal,
your green
son,
monkey,
you may say, my son, some may say.
Okay.
Look at me and you say, why are you putting up with this? You didn't put up with it with us. You sure as hell didn't put up with it with the others. You're letting them destroy each other. What is it about them that you love so much?
Yeah.
And now if you're thinking about it from your perspective, and I'm not saying that you're Lucifer, but you see the parallels. Mm-hmm. And use the same parallels for a lot of different wars in history.
Yeah.
And you can see how something like this would have happened.
Yeah.
So it's all perspective. It is all perspective. And there's one thing in I read it was a fan made thing. It was a continuation of the Angels thing, right? Mm-hmm. And it had a really interesting I'm gonna fuck up the quote, but it had a very interesting thought to it. And I thought, wow, that's so interesting. It was Lucifer's characters talking to Michael because they, before the Holy War, they were really good friends, best friends, and they ended up having to fight each other, right? Mm-hmm. So Lucifer tells Michael, he goes, and you all deem me the evil one, when all I did was say everything none of you wanted to say and stuck up for you. I did what our father wouldn't do for you guys, and you all turned on me. And the fucked up part is, he then went out and created hell. He bound me to the worst existence possible. And not only that, he then pushed it further because deep down he knew I was right. He then made the humans also come to hell. So the only reason that this happened was because, not because Father wanted to save these humans as you think, because otherwise he wouldn't have condemned them. He did that because he didn't want to admit that I was right. And I was like, that's a very interesting perspective to think about. That's a very interesting story to tell, you know?
Yeah. I think that completely backs my point of the most beautiful angel of them all, the angel of light itself, is the one that actually has to learn the hardest lesson so he can shine the brightest. And I think it's in a way, I think it's beautiful, man. A lot of people like to say it's the opposite of what Jesus would be, the Antichrist or whatever that fucking means. I more so look at it as there's different paths to becoming God, and I think all God is whatever can accept the most. That, like, whatever you can go the farthest in. Do I like not have internet? It's showing like bars, but let me restart.
Yo, you spinning hard bars, bro?
But yeah, I think that completely falls into like my perspective of Lucifer has a very big task, and he needs to learn essentially what the purest form of love really is, because all Lucifer, like the archangels are, is essentially a smaller part of God. And I've always thought about this, and Egyptian mythology tells it a little bit differently, other things tell it differently. If God came from nothing, is everything that is then created residuals from the first thing that there ever was? Or did more things get created in the nothingness, which would kind of play into why everybody feels a sense of disconnection in a certain way? And maybe we've never been at a point where we've all been one. Maybe that event has never actually happened, and it's more so an idea that people either strive towards or flee from, because that sounds pretty scary, but it also sounds very peaceful in a sense. And that's the thing. Peace is very, very interesting. I think peace is quite literally nothing at all. And I think when people are on the search for peace, that's why they get nothing in the end. And there's many stories that try to convey this, but people end up looking at it as the Holy Grail, the thing that can bring you all wishes. But what is the one thing the human brain cannot comprehend? That is nothingness. That is non-existence. And that's exactly what peace is. And you can only hope that in some form or way, the data set that is you, that is lost to the nothingness, may somehow, some way, come back. The Order of the Phoenix.
Yeah, I think the issue is, for example, I think you get into what you believe is the meaning of existence, but it's finicky, right? Because if peace is nothing and there is nothingness, then there's no point in anything at all. And that's what you risk.
Yes.
That's what you risk.
Oh,
because,
yeah.
So then, off of that thought process, if we numb it down to there, right, there's only two options. It's either, okay, so if nothing is nothing at all and nothing matters, okay, so why do anything at all, or why not do everything? The big problem that people have, whatever fence they are on, like, you're probably a why not do everything kind of guy. The big problem that people have, and why there's inner turmoil, is because their brains can't comprehend. Like, it won't let them comprehend the thought of the opposite,
which is everything.
If I were to tell you, if we were both sitting there at the beginning of time, and that was the perspective, you would sit there and probably be like, so we can do whatever we want, and then I would sit there and probably be like, but there's no point in doing anything.
Yeah.
And that is the crux of a lot of issues throughout human history. The question changes, the perspective shifts, the two decisions, what the outcomes are, and then what you narrow them down to shifts a little bit. But essentially, it's why do this or why not do anything. Because here's the thing: the third perspective somewhere around the road will reveal itself.
Yeah.
And the third perspective is
You didn't know it didn't work, did you?
And that's how you do it.